You mentioned the opioid crisis. Dr. Rachel Levine was here in the building last week, and got a chance to talk to her briefly about there's a $10 million funding line item that you have in your budget for that. Just this past Friday night, I was at home reading out-of-town newspapers because that's a fun Friday night for me.
You had a
I know. I need to
maybe
get
a
out
better
more.
Friday night.
But I came across an LA Times story about Big Pharma and Naloxone. Let me read you just the first couple lines of that. The latest poster child for cruel and inhuman drug pricing is Kaleo Pharma. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Kaleo, maker of an emergency injector for a med called Naloxone. As America's opioid crisis reaches epidemic levels, Kaleo has jacked up the price for Evzio auto-injector by 600%, soaring from $690 several years ago to $4,500. You hearing anything about the prices for Naloxone going up as now states like ours are relying on that heavily to save lives?
Yes, and I think one of the things that we can parse the opioid epidemic and look at all the different things that are problems out there, and one of them is the price of pharmaceuticals, whether it's Narcan or the injection device. There are a lot of things that I think we have to come to terms with. But we have an opioid epidemic. We have the problem is too many people are taking opioids and getting hooked and on things like heroin, and we have to do something about that. So we can look at there are a lot of that article was about maybe one of the issues that we have to grapple with. We have to grapple with the issue of stigma. We have to grapple with the issue of the lack of an antidote to an overdose. We have to grapple with the lack of adequate beds. There are a lot of things we have to worry about to get to a point where we no longer are losing Pennsylvanians or Americans to this disease.
Included in the budget, you have several ideas to generate revenue. One of them, I want to hold off on one of them, the state police coverage thing, because we have an email from a listener. We're going to talk about that later in the show. But there was another one that I'm trying to wrap my brain around on how it works, so hopefully you can help me. The farm show lease back. Mm-hmm. Now, tell me if I have this right. The state owns the farm show complex here in Harrisburg. We would lease that out for a one-time payment of $200 million to Entity X, who we don't know at this point. They would then lease that back to us. We would pay an annual lease rate plus interest. Is it just about that upfront payment? Because otherwise we're really not making money on the deal.
Well, yeah, it depends. I think we might make some, but yes, it's basically about the upfront payment. Let me tell you why that is. It's a one-time infusion of cash. Mm-hmm. If you look at the deficit, there are some one-time expenditures. For example, most of, if not all, of the $600 million deficit that we have for this year that is part of that $3 billion deficit, that's a one-time expenditure. If we do our estimates better in the future, we won't have $600 million shortfall. So we do have in that big deficit, multi-billion-dollar deficit, some one-time expenditures. So we're trying to match those one-time expenditures with one-time infusion of cash. This is what private sector companies do with companies. They either sell and then lease back, in which case they get an infusion of cash to allow them to take that money and use it for something else, or they have a lease back, which is what we're doing here, which is we have a long-term lease. We get the upfront cash. We get it now to help with that one-time expenditure, and then we pay what we'd normally pay over each year to maintain that, and this time in the form of rent. And then after a certain number of years, we get it back. It's not a sale; it's a lease. It's something that private sector companies do. It's something that actually was suggested by Majority Leader Corman a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm. I want to play devil's advocate here for a second, though, and ask: isn't that the same argument, though, about the liquor stores? That it shouldn't be about the upfront payment; it's an asset that we should keep.
No, that's different. I think my concern with the liquor store is that there is a value in it. And right now we are getting some money from that liquor store on an annual basis. If we just give that away, we do get an upfront cash payment. First of all, it depends on who you're selling it to, whether that is going to be an adequate payment. But then you're going to be giving up $159 million a year for the rest of eternity. We're not getting any income at this point, net income, or not much net income from the farm show, and any net income we get will be reflected in the present valuation of the farm show leaseback. I think the liquor system is a much bigger number if we do that right. And that's why I supported modernization, and that's why I supported what we did. We still have some improvements to make, I think, but I think by and large, the liquor system is working a lot better now than it did. We are counting on more income than we did in the past. And so I think these are two very different things.
It's nice that liquor stores were open on holidays. The President's Day was one of the big things that I saw. A lot of people were happy about that.